Megillah is a scroll similar to the word megaleh, to reveal. Megillah nikres, the Megillah is read Be'achadasar, on the 11th, B'shneim on the 12th, B'shloisha asar, on the 13th, Be'arba'a asar, on the 14th, B'chamisha asar, on the 15th. Le'fachos v'lo yoser, not less and not more. So not before those days or not after those days. Be'achadasar, B'shneim asar, B'shloisha asar, Be'arba'a asar, B'chamisha asar. So the vowels and the bi is a little different with each one. We have bi achadasar, bi shneim asar, bi shloisha asar, bi arba'a asar, and then ba chamisha asar. The meaning is probably the same. And bi as a prefix means in or with. So practically what we're talking about here is on which day do we read the Megillah? It's a holiday of Purim coming up. We'll see soon that there's different days that it's celebrated. In Jerusalem and in any city that had a wall in the time of Joshua, Yehoshua ben Nun, any city that was walled at that time celebrates Purim on the 15th of Adar, the next full moon coming up. We just passed the 15th of Shvat, the new year for the trees. Cities other than walled cities from that time period of Joshua, son of Nun, other cities will read it on the 14th, the day before. And they'll have their Purim celebrations the day before. This has to do with the history of the actual Purim story, the chronicles of Purim, what happened. How Shushan, the capital of Persia, was a walled city. What does that have to do with Yehoshua ben Nun? It's a good question. Maybe that's the last time period where we had definitive walls, cities that were definitely walled. Pretty sure it's cities that were walled at the time of Joshua. So in Persia, in the capital city, which was a walled city, they had an extra day of celebrations, an extra day of war, something, they had an extra day. So in the walled cities, we celebrated on the 15th. Other cities, we celebrate on the 14th. Why would we sometimes read on the 13th or on the 12th or on the 11th? That has to do with small villages. Small villages where the people would only come into the big city twice a week, on Monday and Thursday for the market. So the sages instituted that on Monday and Thursday we would read from the Torah scrolls, because anyways the people were coming in to the big cities. In the small villages, they didn't read the Torah. I guess they weren't learned, they didn't know how to read the Torah, or they didn't have a Torah scroll. So they'd come to the big cities for market day on Monday and Thursday, and they would read from the Torah. So the sages didn't want to make these people come in an extra day. You know, let's say Purim falls out on Sunday. We don't want them to have to come in on Sunday to read the Megillah and then again on Monday. So they would just read it on Monday. Or if Purim fell out on Tuesday and they were coming in on Monday, they would just, instead of coming in on Monday to read the Torah and on Tuesday to read the Megillah, we would just do everything on Monday. That's how you have these days of the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th. But really, the 14th and the 15th are the main days. So that's practically what we're talking about. If we forget all the context that I just brought up, or we just to read it straightforward, without the vowel points, the nekudot, and we'll just see what we can come up with. It sounds like this Megillah, this revelation, is called or read with the 11th, with the 12th, with the 13th, with the 14th, and with the 15th. What do these numbers represent? Obviously, we know they represent days, but what if we didn't know they represented days and we just looked at the numbers? So there's a parallel, I think, to the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, which opens up 9 and not 10. I'm sorry, 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11, right? It's talking about the Sephiros, how there's 10 and there's not 9, 10 and not 11. Here we have 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Not less and not more. Seems like a parallel to me. Okay. Kirakin hamukafin chayma mimais Yehoshua ben Nun. A krach, some type of settlement. Krach is some type of settlement. It's a fortified place, a city, or a capital. Okay? So this city, which is Hamukafin Chayma, which is Mukaf, it's surrounded. Mukaf is like on the holiday of Simchas Torah, we do Hakafot, we do circles around the Torah, around the middle of the synagogue, around the Bima. So that's Mukaf. We also have the light of Hashem. We have the light of Hashem that permeates all of existence, and we have the light of Hashem that encompasses or surrounds all of existence. That's the Makif, is the light that surrounds. So a krachkin, plural, hamukafin, that we're surrounded. Chayma is a wall. It's not just a wall. Chayma means a wall, but we know that until the Messiah, until the arrival of the Messiah, we're forbidden from going up to Israel b'chayma, with a chayma. So what does it mean, chayma? Let's see if we can pull up a definition for chayma here. Chayma. Chayma is surround or protect. A wall, especially a fortified wall. Protection, fortification. Okay. So what does that mean, that we can't go up to Israel with chayma? It means more like enforce. You can't force our way into Israel. Going back to our text, krakin, these fortified cities that were surrounded with a chayma, from a wall, with a wall. Miyamais Yehoshua ben Nun, from the days of Joshua, son of Nun. Kairin b'chamisha asar, they call or read on the 15th of Adar. Kfarim, so kfar is like a village. Kfar is a village. To be round, circle, or village, or country town. Okay? So villages, ba'ayaris gedoles, and big cities, Kairin ba'arba'a asar, they read or call on the 14th of Adar. Ela shakifarim akdim and liyom haknisa. Only what? That these little small villages, they precede it to the day of the gathering, or the entrance, or the gathering. Meaning that day that we spoke about, where they would go up on Mondays and Thursdays to the big cities, and they would hear the Torah being read on the same day they went to the market. So, although we just said that these little villages, along with the big cities, read it on the 14th, they precede it to the Yom HaKnisa, the day that they're going anyway to have the market, to go to the market and to have the Torah read for them. Okay, so that's the first Mishnah in the Masechet Megillah. Okay, why don't I have Rashi here? Is there no Rashi in Masechet Megillah? Interesting. Okay, we have an English explanation, introduction. The first Mishnah of Megillah teaches that the Megillah might be read on different days depending on the locality. So the Megillah is read on the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th of Adar, never earlier and never later. Cities which have been walled since the days of Joshua ben Nun read on the 15th. Villages and large towns read on the 14th. Okay. Instead of Rashi, because we don't have it, we'll go with Bartanura. Okay? Megillah Nikres. Be'achadasar b'shnemasar. The Megillah is read, this revelation is called on the 11th and the 12th, or with the 11th or with the 12th. So pa'amim pazeh, pa'amim bazeh. Times with this, times with this. Meaning sometimes it'll be on this day, sometime on that day. Like is explained going forward. Those cities that were walled from the days of Joshua, son of Nun, they read it on the 15th. They call it on the Tesvav, which is 15 numerically, 9 and 6. Or Yud and Hey. We don't want to write the Yud and Hey, so we write Tesvav. Okay, as it's written, Dichsiv, as it's written in the scroll of Esther, the book of Esther, it's written in chapter 9, verse 19. Al Kena Yehudim Haprazim, therefore the Jews that were scattered, they made the day on the 14th. And from this that we know that those who were scattered, the Jews that were scattered around all over the world, they celebrated the 14th. It's a proof from here, you can hear from here, that those that live in the mukaf, in the surrounding, meaning those that are surrounded with the wall, right? They were in the Tesvav, in the 15th. And from the days of Joshua, Nafkalan Gzera Shava Mi Praze Praze. Nafkalan, it comes out, or we learn it. Gzera Shava, I believe, is the Gimel Shin. Gzera Shava means a decree of equanimity or equalness. Mi prazi prazi, from prazi prazi. From this word prazi, and which appears twice, prazi and prazi. Ksiv hacha, it's written here, haYehudim haprazim, the Jews that were scattered, right? In our verse that we were quoted, it talks about the Jews that were scattered. V'ksiv hasam, and it's written there in Devarim, in the 5th book of the 5 books of Moses. I think we call it Deuteronomy. So in Devarim, chapter 3, verse 5, what does it say? It says, Levad me'ore haprazi, aside from the cities, or from the city of the Prazi. Okay, so we have the same word. Prazim and Prazi. Haprazim and Haprazi, it's the same word. So what's the Gzera Shava? What's this law of equanimity or equalness? Ma lahalan mimais Yeshua. Just like there in Deuteronomy, or in Devarim, what's it talking about? It's talking about from the miyamais Yeshua, from the days of Joshua. Afkan miyamais Yeshua. Also here in the book of Esther, when it uses this word prazi, it's talking about the days of Joshua. That's called the Gzera Shava. Uses the same word, and the sages linked it. They said, just like there, so too here. Gzera Shava is not something we make on our own, but when we have the tradition, we can use it to back up what we're saying, okay? And they were metaken, they decreed that these villages or cities, krach we said were the cities, possibly fortified, but these cities that were mukafim chayma, that were encompassed by a wall from the miyamais Yeshua, from the days of Joshua, even though they don't have a wall now. Yikra'u b'tesvav k'may Shushan. They will read it on the 15th like Shushan. Shushan is the capital of Persia. Why? In order to apportion honor to the land of Israel, which was in ruins in the days of Mordechai and Esther. Mordechai and Esther were the good guys during the Purim story. Esther is adopted by her uncle Mordechai. Esther goes undercover at the request of Mordechai into the king's chambers. Esther is the soul. Mordechai is the tzaddik. Kidei sheyu kairen kivnei Shushan. So we said we want to give honor to Israel, which was in ruins at the times of Mordechai and Esther. Kidei sheyu kairen kivnei Shushan, so that they will read like the people of Shushan, the capital of Persia. V'yachshavu ki'ilu heim krachim hamukafim, and they will be considered as if they are fortified or surrounded cities, surrounded with a wall. Even though they are now destroyed and ruined. And there will be a remembrance to the land of Israel with this miracle. It's a little odd to me trying to understand this. Even though these cities are destroyed today, but they once had a wall, because they were once fortified cities, they'll read it on the day of Shushan to bring honor to Israel, which was in ruins at the time. Meaning it doesn't matter if you're in ruins now. You once had a wall, we're giving honor to honor Israel, which even though it was in ruins at the time of this specific miracle, it once had a wall. Jerusalem we're talking about, okay. Ulefi, and because because Joshua began to fight with Amalek at first, in the beginning, Uksiv, and it's written there in Shemos, Exodus 17, verse 14, it's written there, write this, a remembrance in a book, and place in the ears of Joshua. Therefore, it's mentioned from the days of Joshua. Again, hard for me to understand the connection here, because it says, write this as a remembrance in a book and place in the ears of Joshua, therefore it's mentioned from the days of Joshua. Okay. We said, but the small villages, they precede it. They make it earlier to the day that they come into the market and hear the Torah reading, right? As if to say, since or after the surrounded cities read it on the 15th, and those that are not surrounded read on the 14th, everything's included. Right? What else are you missing? So how is it found further 11, 12, and 13th? Ella rather shakfarim nisnu lahem rishus lahaktim kriyasam liyom haknisa yom beis b'shabbos shelifnei yudalid ohei b'shabbos shehein yom haknisa. So how is it found that we'll read it on the 11th, 12th, or 13th? Rather, so the villages was given to them permission to precede their reading of the Megillah to the day of gathering or of entering. Yom Beis, the Monday, the second day of the week. Yom Beis b'Shabbos, the second day of the Shabbos, Shelifnei Yudalid, that precedes the 14th. So if the 14th was on, let's say, Wednesday, so they could read it on the Monday before, which would be the 12th. Right? Oy Hey b'Shabbos, or on the 5th of the week of the Sabbath, the 5th day, Thursday. Shehein, they are the Monday and Thursday, this second day of the week and the 5th day of the week of the Shabbos. They are the Yom HaKnisa. They are the day of the entering or the gathering. Shakfarim iskansim ba'yaris lemishpat, that the villages, they would gather in the cities for judgment, for judgments. Lefisha based in Yoshvim bebeis vehei betakanas Ezra. because the courts, these biblical Jewish courts, they would sit and judge, right? They would sit on Mondays and on Thursdays, on the 2nd and on the 5th of the week, according to the Takana of Ezra, according to this that Ezra set in place. Onami, or alternatively, why do they gather on those days? The villagers, these villages, they gather in the cities on the 2nd and 5th day of the week. Why? Lishmoya Kriyas Torah, to hear the reading of the Torah. Vakfarim einam bekiyim kol kach lekrois. And the villagers, these villages, they're not so expert that much to read. And they require that it should be read to them from, like, someone should read to them, one of the people from the city should read to them. And those sages did not bother them to return and come back on the 14th. So that they should be available on the day of Purim, that there should be enough for the needs of the meals for Purim, the meal of Purim, for those people that live in the city. I guess the people that live in the city, right, they're relying on the village people to prepare the meals, to, grow them food, harvest the food, come bring them the food. I don't know. But for some reason, the sages said, we're not going to make them come back and read the Megillah on the 14th like they're supposed to. When the 14th falls out, let's say on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, we'll let them read it on the Monday before, because they're coming anyway. Why can't they be bothered to come on the 14th? It had something to do with them being available on the Purim day for the people of the city. Don't really understand that. Okay. Umatzu ledavar zeh remez min hamikra, and it's found this thing, an allusion from the verse, from the scripture, Dechsiv, as it's written in Esther, in the book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 31. L'kayim es yimei haPurim ha'ela bizmaneim, to fulfill the days of Purim, these days of Purim in their times. V'iloi takun Mordechai ve'Esther el yodalad v'tesvav haksuvim b'mikra, and if Mordechai and Esther didn't set, besides for this 14th and the 15th, which is written in the verse, Lemakra bizmanam, the verse should have said, this verse here that we said in chapter 9, verse 31, it should have said bizmanam, in their time, plural, but their time. Why is it bizmanehem? Yeah, we have an extra yud and an extra hey. It's a different word almost. Maizmanehem, so why does it say zmanehem? It's a proof from here. You can hear from here. There's another two times besides those that are written in the scroll, in the revealed Megillah. Okay, which is, I guess, the 11th and the 12th. And the 13th. What about the 13th? Because they're saying there's two more that are hinted to, right? In this extra wording, extra letters of Zmanayim. So what about the 13th? The 13th, you don't need a verse to include it that it's appropriate to read the Megillah on the 13th. Because the main miracle was on that day, the 13th. Because on that day, on the 13th, they gathered to take revenge from their enemies, whether it was in Shushan, the capital of Persia, or whether it was in the rest of the countries. Al karchach loy ravi kra elo yud aleph yud beis. So against your will, meaning you're forced to say that the verse is not including, the scripture is not coming to include or make an addition, besides for the 11th and the 12th. The 13th is obvious, apparently. Ve'ein loimer deravi tazayin v'yud zayin shel achri yudalad v'tesvav haksuvim b'megillah, and you don't say that it's coming to include the 16th and the 17th, which are after the 14th and 15th that are written in the Megillah. The Amar Kra, because the verse says there in this book of Esther, V'lo ya'avor, and it shouldn't pass. It shouldn't pass. So we know that it cannot pass the 15th. Okay? We now conclude the first Mishnah in the tractate of Megillah, which has to do with Purim coming up this month on the full moon and the day before it, along with the commentary of Bartenura. Hope you liked it. It was very good for me. This reading was very good for me. I hope you get something from it too.